Okay, welcome back to the MK character reviews. This time we're doing Johnny Cage. He's the last of the low hand sizers at 5 hand size with 30 vitality. Earth, good order. Respond after you take damage. Add 1 foundation from your discard pile to your staging area committed. E, commit 1 foundation. This attack gets plus or minus X damage. X equals the printed difficulty of the commit foundation. Okay, so Johnny Cage. Unfortunately, I feel like he is by far the worst out of the 3 low hand size characters, okay? And here's why. So first of all, the response. It's incredibly powerful. Incredibly. Tutor anything from your discard pile, right? After you take damage, add 1 foundation. So the problem with this is that your opponent can control it to a degree. Obviously, they have to deal damage to you to kill you, but they can choose when this trigger starts going off. They can choose how often it gets to go off because they can choose when to or to not attack you. I mean, we're assuming that your opponent's intelligent enough to make those decisions, but that's how it works. As a 5 hand size, you can't naturally build very aggressively on your own accord. Not as Johnny Cage anyways. You're kind of relying on that R in order to do that. He doesn't have any card draw built into him. What kind of compounds with this problem, if people aren't attacking into Johnny Cage, is that his enhance has a foundation commit as a cost. Okay, so not only will you not be able to build aggressively if they're not attacking into you, but in order to use your other effect, you need to be committing foundations, which you might not have as many of if your opponent doesn't attack into you. Kind of see where my problem is? The problem with this is that your opponent can control how quickly you scale or set up. I mean, obviously there's ways to build your deck to mitigate those problems, but we're just looking at the character, we're just looking at what the character wants to do and how the character wants to operate. So he's a little bit at the opponent's mercy in terms of when the opponent decides that they want to go in onto you. So it kind of gives them the opportunity to leverage, like if they're a 7 hand size or a 6 hand size, they can try to leverage their the extra cards they're seeing to set up faster, right? So the game right now seems to be that it wants to get as close to deadlock as quickly as possible and then push hard depending on what your opponent has. And then if your opponent isn't running any deadlock stuff, you can just go willy-nilly and then, bash his face in. So as a Johnny Cage player, that might be something to be aware of as well. Running strong deadlock effects is going to prevent your opponent from running the game away on you. It's going to kind of keep them in check. So you're going to make them not want to aggressively build against you and thus playing a little bit more into where Johnny Cage wants to play it. So it's something to keep in mind when you're playing Johnny or building around Johnny. Just with that R, your opponent can kind of decide when to go. So the E, commit 1 foundation. The stack gets plus or minus X damage. So looking at them, you're going to want to run high difficulty stuff and you're hoping your opponent's going to deal damage to you. And when they do, you can put in this really high difficulty foundation stuff and you can get it for free. So let's look at this. Let's really look at how Johnny Cage wants to play. So going back to that idea where we're going to be wanting to run deadlock stuff or things that are going to want to prevent our opponent from scaling away from us, right? Self-destruct's an option as well. However, we got to look at it. So the commit 1 foundation, here's how I see it. Here's how I see Johnny Cage working in his best, in his prime. You're running really heavy deadlock stuff, like stuff your opponent doesn't even want to touch, okay? Let's say that you are running that. So your opponent's going to want to race up as close to deadlock as possible, but then stay there. Okay, what you need to do is you need to just catch up as quickly as you can. And then you want to be playing defensively. Okay, you just want to kind of hold your own, do some chip damage when you have an opportunity to do so, but just kind of like make sure they can't leverage a strong early resource gain against you. Okay, because that's what I feel like Johnny Cage might be the worst at, is if someone can do that. However, if they're going to attack into you, and if you're prepared for that, you can then, as you're taking damage, set yourself up for more reduction. So basically what you're going to try to do is you're going to expect that the best plan for your opponent is to just leverage that resource advantage. So if you're planning for that alpha strike to try and kill you, okay, because as long as you can start surviving those hits, like if an opponent's just attacking into you and they're just going to chip damage and they're just going to let you tutor crap all day long, you're laughing at them. You're just absolutely laughing in their face. Be like, okay, I'll just grab my highest difficulty stuff and start using it to reduce damage, or start using it to pump the snot out of throws, or start just clubbing the living bejesus out of them, right? If they're doing that, they're idiots and they deserve to die anyways. But if they're smart, they're going to race up to a high foundation count, get ahead of you, leverage that advantage and try to crush you as quickly as they can, right? Because your foundations are coming in committed, so they're not quite ready off the hop. So if your opponent's good, they will hopefully be able to burn you down in 2 turns if they get their way, right? I'm being ideal with all this stuff too. I'm just kind of, spitballing ideas. But that's how I kind of see him. If you can plan for that first Alpha Strike and you can just shut it down while taking menial chip damage and then setting up your board even more to resist even more onslaughts, because the more that they're trying to throw damage into you and the more that you can manage how that damage is coming through to you, and a lot of Johnny Cage's kit allows you to do that, and even his own abilities on that enhance allow you to do that. So the more you get, the better off you are. Now, the downside to this is, okay, obviously if you're running foundations that are high difficulty costs, it's also going to start messing with your turn 1 builds, right? Like your early draws and how that build's going to scale out and how safe it's going to be and your risks involved in that. So he's going to be a bit of a trick to play. He's going to be a bit of a trick to build. And I don't love him because I feel like he takes the most work just to kind of, like, you really have to play around those 2 abilities. You really kind of got to do it. Unless you're playing into morons and they're just giving you your stuff for free, right? If you're playing with idiots, then, go nuts. Do whatever you want with Johnny Cage because they're just going to give you free wins all the time, right? He's just going to punish dumb people, to the ends of the earth. Go nuts with that. But that's kind of how I see it. And if I had to play against Johnny Cage, that's how I'd look at him too. Either I'm wanting to push damage in early when he doesn't have foundations to grab, but I mean, like, he makes 2 checks and he's already going to have foundations he can grab. Or I'm going to have a way to shut down Johnny. I'm going to have to knock him over somehow, or you're going to have to wait till he's committed before you're going to burst into him, right? You're going to have to set yourself up into an opportunity where you can wedge yourself into him where he's not going to be able to just take advantage of you attacking into him. So, yeah, he's kind of a weird guy. He punishes people for attacking, sort of, unless they do it smart. Anyways, that's how I feel about Johnny. That's where I'm at. Hopefully that helps some people think about him or build him or changes their view on him. I don't know. Anyways, till next one.